On Thanksgiving, her father stood, raised his glass, and said, "She needs a man, not a little boy who cannot even afford his parents' anniversary." I answered him in front of everyone. My wife shouted, "Apologize right now, or we're over." I smiled, without saying a word. And when she came back home weeks later, there was no home to come back to. My name is Marcus. I'm 32, a project manager by day, and the default guy who fixes things in my family by night. The one who knows which breaker controls the kitchen outlets, which card has the lower APR, which bill autopays on the 12th. I grew up counting receipts because the numbers calmed me down. These days, the numbers still keep me honest. I live in a small apartment on the east side, nothing fancy, second-hand couch, a sturdy dining table. I sanded myself, a whiteboard calendar with color-coded boxes. I cook basic meals, I keep my job, and most people would describe me as steady. My wife is Ava. She's 30, brilliant in a room and easily adored in a crowd. In her family, she's the golden one. Her father, Victor, is the patriarch type, big voice, bigger opinions, who measures men by watches, car notes, and how quickly they pull a card when the check arrives. Her mother, Diane, smiles and refills your glass, while delivering a judgment you don't feel until you're home. They never say it out loud, but the roles are written. Ava deserves, Victor decides, Diane smooths, and I provide. We married in a small ceremony I loved because it felt like us. Pasta buffet, thrifted vases, music from a playlist I made. No string quartet, no ice sculpture. I remember Victor frowning at the mason jars and telling me, "A real man makes memories worth framing." I smiled and went back to stacking chairs. You learn to let certain lines pass through you, or else you spend every night arguing with ghosts. This year, Thanksgiving landed at Victor and Diane's house, as always. The table looked like a magazine spread, linen runner, gold chargers, candles that made the ceiling glow. Football murmured in the background. The cousins were in the den, the aunts monopolized the kitchen, and the men rotated between the driveway and the TV, talking about nothing like it was a sport. Ava squeezed my hand on the way in. "Please just don't react," she whispered. "Dad's in a mood." In a mood about what? She didn't answer. The turkey was perfect. The wine was expensive. The small digs arrived on time. Victor to me, smiling. "How's that little job?" "Still playing with spreadsheets." Diane to the table, louder than necessary. "Ava works so hard. She deserves a break from worrying about pennies." I cut my food into squares and reminded myself to breathe through my nose. I had a plan for the week after. Pay rent, move a chunk into the emergency fund, pick up a Saturday shift, but none of that mattered in this room. Here, money wasn't about math. It was about control. After dinner, the lights dimmed. Victor stood, raised his glass, and touched a fork to the crystal 3 times like a judge calling order. He cleared his throat and looked around with the benevolent expression he wears before he says the thing you have to swallow. "To family," he began. "To my daughter, who deserves the world. And to the men who make it possible for the women in this family to live well." He turned to me, eyebrows lifted. "Some men, anyway." Silence that hummed. Then he went for it. "She needs a man, not a little boy who cannot even afford his parents' anniversary." Forks froze. Someone laughed the wrong way and turned it into a cough. Ava's fingers tightened around her napkin until it wrinkled. I looked at Victor. He looked back, pleased with himself like a coach who'd motivated a player by calling him soft. I thought about 2 checks I'd covered for his own credit card without telling him, because Ava had begged and said he was waiting on a bonus. I thought about the time I sold my only guitar to help Ava's sister out of a lease. I thought about how often you can pay for other people's emergencies until they start to schedule them around your payday. I didn't stand. I didn't make a speech. I answered him in front of everyone with a quiet certainty that surprised me. "You're wrong," I said. Victor blinked. "What did you say?" "You're wrong." I repeated, same tone, same volume. Ava shot up from her chair like a spring. "Apologize right now," she said, voice trembling. "Or we're over." The room exhaled in a single delighted gasp the way rooms do when drama is promised. I smiled without showing teeth. I didn't say a word. And when she came back home weeks later, there was no home to come back to. It didn't start with that toast. It started in small rooms years earlier, with comments that sound like jokes until you count how often they're repeated. The first time I met Victor, he shook my hand and looked at my watch like he was reading it. "You planning to upgrade that?" he asked. "Ava has an eye for nice things." I laughed. He didn't. When Ava and I moved in together, we picked an apartment we could afford on one salary because I liked sleeping through the night. Victor visited once, stood in the doorway, and nodded at the laminate floors. "Starter place," he said. Key word, starter. Every conversation after that was about the next thing. The bigger car, the condo, the vacation you can post. Ava grew up a certain way, Diane would say, sliding her wine around the rim of the glass. She shouldn't have to go backward. There's a version of me in another universe who tried to keep up. I saw him once, doing overtime he hated to pay for furniture that hurt his back. I didn't want to be that guy. I kept the budget clean. I said no to things that were not for us. The problem is, if you say no too often around people who say yes to status, it sounds like you're saying no to them. The anniversary they're still mad about was Victor and Diane's 30th. Ava came home breathless with ideas. "We're doing a surprise party," she said. "He wants a live band, but we'll do a DJ. We'll invite 50, maybe 60, people. The venue is flexible on price." "What's the budget?" I asked. "It depends on contributions," she said. "Your parents can give something, my aunties will handle desserts, my brother will get drinks wholesale, and you and I, well, will cover the rest." I didn't want to be the villain in a story told at holidays for 10 years. But I also didn't want to subsidize a milestone for people who had already decided I was a liability. "I can put in a number," I said. "I won't sign for the venue." Ava looked annoyed in the way she gets when I don't read a script I haven't been shown. "You're being rigid." "I'm being specific." "Same thing," she said. When the invoice arrived, it was what invoices always are: math. Venue deposit, DJ retainer, caterer minimums, chair rentals that cost more than any chair should. Ava slid the paper across the table like a dealer. "We need 3,000 this week." "I can do 1,000, I said. She held the paper between two fingers and looked at me like I'd bumped her in a crowd. That night, Victor called me to chat like men. He used the word man too many times. "A man shows up," he said. "A man doesn't let his wife carry the load. A man doesn't say I can't." I let him talk until he ran out of steam. When I didn't fill the silence with money, he filled it with insult. "You can't even afford your own parents' anniversary," he said, turning my boundary into a blade and pretending to be shocked by the cut. I almost told him about my parents. That they didn't want a party, they wanted their roof fixed. I almost told him about the 3 times I'd covered his, waiting on a bonus. I didn't. There's a rule I follow now. Don't argue with people who think greed is a love language. Ava and I had the same fight in different outfits for a year. When her younger sister wanted to break a lease, Ava said, "She's basically a kid." She was 26. When her brother floated a business that was a pyramid with one more step, Ava said, "It could be huge." It wasn't. When Diane's card got declined at lunch, she texted Ava to handle it with your joint, and the next day, I watched a line item hit a card that had my name on it. "It's family," Ava said. "I'll pay you back." She forgot. Not on purpose. Because forgetting is easy when there are no consequences. I tried to build a middle ground. I made a shared budget, color-coded, with categories we'd agreed on. Rent, groceries, savings, fun. A small family support line with a cap. Ava seemed impressed. "It's cute," she said, and I watched the plan turn from a tool into a polite suggestion. Cute doesn't change behavior. Boundaries do. I just didn't have the stomach for the fight yet. The little humiliations piled up. A family dinner where Victor clapped a hand on my shoulder and said, "Let's hope he gets a real raise soon." As if my salary were a temporary illness. A holiday where Diane asked in front of everyone, "Do you think Ava will ever get her ring upgraded?" Like my love could be measured in carats. A loan to her brother that became a gift because he lost his phone the week he was supposed to transfer. I'm not perfect in this story. I did things I didn't want to do to keep peace. I covered charges and swallowed pride. I let my balance sheet carry the weight of other people's feelings. And every time I did, Ava's gratitude bought me 24 hours of ease before the next small thing. In our quiet moments, I tried to explain. It's not the money, I said. It's the disrespect. It's the way your dad talks to me, as if I'm an allowance. It's the way you say just this once every month. It's the fact that I'm the only one who remembers the numbers. Ava would soften. I know. He grew up poor. He hates feeling small. So do I said. She kissed me and said, "Can you please not make Thanksgiving a scene? He'll toast. He always toasts. Just let it go." Let it go is not a plan. It's a request to pay interest on silence. On the morning of Thanksgiving, I ran 5 miles and told myself to be a pond. Still, reflective, hard to disturb. I showered. I put on the good sweater. I loaded the pies we bought because die and judge is crust. I drew a line around my patience and hoped no one found it. By dessert, Victor had found it. He stood and said the thing. I said, "You're wrong. Ava told me to apologize, or we're over." In that second, the math finally beat the drama. Here were the facts. I had tried. I had bent. I had financed and forgiven. And here was my wife, demanding a public bow to protect her father's ego. I smiled without words, because arguing with a toast is theater, and I stopped doing theater. On the drive home, we didn't speak. In the elevator, Ava stared at the numbers like they could tell her who she'd married. In our kitchen, she set her purse down and said, "If you don't fix this tomorrow, I'm staying at my parents' until you do." I looked at her. I loved her. I also love myself. I said nothing. Silence can be a hammer. It can also be a door. She packed a bag and left. The door clicked like a period. I sat at the table and opened my laptop. Not to do something petty. To finally do something honest. I didn't sleep much that night. I made a list, because lists keep me from reacting like a fool. Separate finances immediately. Remove family as authorized users on any card with my name. Freeze the family emergency card. Draft a simple letter with terms if there's to be any reconciliation. Call my landlord in the morning and ask about lease options. At 7 a.m., I made coffee. At 7:15, I logged in and checked every account. It's amazing how fast clarity sharpens your eyesight. Charges I'd overlooked in the fog popped into focus. A salon bill. A florist deposit. A boutique purchase tagged event dress. All on the card Ava used because it was ours. I didn't rage. I downloaded statements. I printed them. I put them in a manila folder labeled facts. At 8 a.m., I called the card companies and removed authorized users with a sentence I practiced in the mirror. I am the primary cardholder. Please remove the following users. At 8.20, I toggled off a secondary debit card on the bank app. At 8.30, I paused the emergency fund auto transfer that had become a family sugar line. At 9 o'clock, I emailed HR to split my direct deposit into a new account I'd opened last month for someday. None of it was revenge. Every click felt like a stitch closing a wound. At 9.15, I typed a letter. No flourishes. No quotes. No long preface. Just terms. Ava, if we are to continue, we need boundaries that live in actions, not apologies. We will keep separate checking accounts and a shared bill account only for rent, utilities, groceries. No family charges on any shared card. None. Your father will not speak to me like I'm a child. You will not ask me to accept public disrespect to keep peace. If your family needs help, we decide together, cap it, and document it. Couples counseling. This isn't about revenge. This is about closure. I'm closing doors that should have been closed from the start. I didn't send it yet. I set it on the table and made eggs. At 10.30, I called our landlord. Hypothetically, I said, if a tenant needed to end the lease early. He sighed the sigh of a man who has heard every story. There's an early termination clause, he said. 60 days notice or a buyout equal to 1.5 months rent. If you're out by January 31st, we'll prorate. How soon can I give notice? Today, he said. I stared at the wall where we'd planned to hang a gallery of photos and never did. Okay, I said. Send me the form. At noon, Ava texted. Dad expects you at 3 to talk. You can fix this. I wrote back. I won't be attending a tribunal. She replied, so childish. Victor called. I let it go to voicemail. He filled 2 minutes with words like coward and provide and embarrassment, and my phone helpfully transcribed them into a poem about projection. At 3 p.m., I packed a duffel. Not because I was running. Because I was done living in a place where I could be invaded by other people's demands. I filled a second bag with shared documents, passports, and the folder labeled facts. I took photos of the apartment for the move-out checklist like a man cataloging a set he built for a play that closed early. At 4:30, I dropped the termination form in the landlord's office mail slot. At 4:32, I texted Ava the letter. I did not add flourish. I did not ask if she agreed. I wrote, this is what it would take. At 5:10, my phone began the concerto of a family deprived of its favorite instrument. Diane, we're worried about Ava. Victor, be a man. Ava, you're humiliating me. Her brother. Bro, you're tripping. Her sister. Can we talk, just us girls? LOL. I turned my phone face down and went for a run in the cold until my lungs burned the buzz out of my body. When I came back, there were 18 missed calls and 12 texts. I plugged the phone in and took a shower. Hot water is honesty. It makes you admit what you already know. I wasn't going to unsee the truth because a room full of people told me to. The next day, Ava's message arrived. I need time. I'm staying with my parents. We can revisit when you apologize to my father. I read it twice. I wrote back, no. I won't be apologizing for refusing to accept disrespect. She read it and didn't respond. Day 3, I started looking at smaller places. Day 4, I moved half my things into a storage unit. Day 5, I put the framed print we bought on our honeymoon in a box and labeled it, ours, if. Day 6, I slept in the living room on a mattress on the floor because the bedroom smelled like a memory I needed less of. On day 7, I woke up to a quiet that didn't hurt. I made coffee. I made toast. I sat at the table and watched light crawl across the floor. At 9 a.m., I called a therapist whose name I'd written on a sticky note a month earlier and said, I think I've been confusing enabling with love. He said, you're not alone. I said, I'd like not to be. 2 weeks later, the movers carried the last box out. The whiteboard calendar was blank. The nail holes in the wall looked like punctuation. I handed the keys over and signed the inspection form. The landlord said, cleanest move out I've seen this year. It felt like a compliment and a small funeral. I texted Ava the new P.O. box for mail. I told her how to pick up her things. I wrote, if you want to talk, really talk, send a time and a place. Not your parents' house. She didn't respond that day. Or the next. People think silence is empty. It's not. It's crowded with what you didn't say and what you finally heard. The first week after I moved out, my phone went through cycles. Morning, respect the boundary. Afternoon, test the fence. Evening, perform the crisis. Victor sent a group text with, family meeting, in the subject as if we were a corporation and he was HR. I didn't attend. Dien tried soft. He didn't mean it. I sent back the exact quote he had said, with a timestamp and 3 witnesses' names, and wrote, he meant it. Ava sent me photos of our couch in her parents' den, like an invitation to feel something. I did. I felt relief that I wasn't sitting on it. Nodding while a man explained my duty to him, using my wife's love as leverage. I went to work, I went to therapy, I went running. I slept more. I started cooking dinners that were just for me, which felt selfish and then felt sacred. My therapist gave me a sentence I carried around like a key. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. It sat heavy in my pocket in a good way. On day 10, Ava called. I answered. Her voice was small and sharp in turns. You left me, she said. You left our home. You left when you told me to apologize or else, I said. You left when you chose a toast over a partner. She inhaled like a swimmer. You could have just said sorry. I did say sorry, I said. To myself. For letting this go on as long as it did. She was quiet for a beat. I miss you, she whispered. I miss you too, I said, because I don't lie when it matters. I don't miss being a wallet with a mouth. She cried softly. Can we meet? We met at a coffee shop far from both families. She wore the sweater I bought her last winter. I wore the jacket she hates. We sat by the window. She apologized without looking at me. I shouldn't have said that, she said. I panicked. I was embarrassed. I know, I said. I was there. My dad, she started, then stopped. He's old school. He's disrespectful, I said. Old school is open the door. Not call your son-in-law a child. She kept folding and unfolding a napkin. What do you want? She asked. I slid the letter across the table. This. She read. She made a face at counseling and said nothing. She put the paper down like it was hot. My parents will never agree to number 3. They don't have to, I said. You do. She pressed her lips together. If I agree, does that mean you'll move back? No, I said. It means we'll start. Maybe with coffee. Maybe with counseling. Maybe with a weekend where no one else's names are said out loud. She looked out the window at nothing. I don't know if I can do that, she said. They're my family. So am I said. Or I was. We sat in the heavy. Eventually, she stood. I need time, she said. Dad says you're punishing us. This isn't punishment, I said. It's math. I stopped paying bills I never owed. She left. The door chimed. The air felt cooler after. 2 weeks later, she texted. I'm coming home. The message landed like a stone. I typed, which home? She wrote. Ours. I wrote. There isn't one. At 6:10 p.m., she arrived at the old apartment with a suitcase and found what I told her she'd find. An empty echo, a forwarding address taped to the door, a landlord who held up a hand and said, he ended the lease. In a hallway that didn't hold our laughter anymore. She called me in the stairwell. Where are my plates? She asked, grief and anger braided. Where is our bed? Our rug? In storage, I said. Labeled. You actually did it. She whispered, like she hadn't believed the numbers would add up to action. I told you the terms, I said. You told me to apologize or else. Else happened. Victor called minutes later. You petty boy, he spat. How dare you? Good evening. I said, because politeness costs nothing and irritates bullies. Please direct future communication to email. We're suing, he said. For what? He hung up. I went for a run and then ate takeout on the floor of my new place, a studio with good light and a door that locks quietly. I slept with the window cracked and woke to birds I didn't know the names of. The next morning, I made coffee and wrote in a notebook. Peace is expensive. Worth it. I underlined worth twice. A month later, Ava and I met again, not because anyone forced it, because time moves and people either move with it or turn to salt. She looked different. Tired in a way rarely seen on her, lighter in a way I recognized in me. She didn't preface. I told my dad to stop, she said, hands flat on the table. He didn't. I told him anyway. That's new. I said. I read your letter again, she continued. I could agree to all of it except the part where he apologizes. He won't. He doesn't have to, I said. You and I do the work. He can keep his pride. I'm keeping my boundaries. She nodded. Separate accounts. Joint for bills. No family charges. Counseling. Yes, I said. And if he insults me in public again, you stand up next to me and say, that won't happen. Not for me. For us. She swallowed. I can do that. Then maybe we can try. I said. I didn't make a promise. I made a plan. We went to counseling. We sat in chairs and told the truth to a stranger so we could hear it ourselves. I used Marcus as a shield. Ava said one day, eyes wet. So my dad wouldn't be mad at me. I nodded and said, I used money to buy silence. The therapist didn't clap. She just kept handing us tools and insisting we use them. Victor kept being Victor. The difference is we stopped letting him be director. When he cornered me at a birthday and said, "Men provide," I said, "Good thing I am one," and walked away. When Diane whispered, "We're family, though," Ava said, "That's why we respect Marcus's no." The first holiday after the fracture, I brought a pie and left after dessert. No speeches, no fights, no invitations to defend myself. In the car, Ava said, "Thank you for not reacting." I laughed softly. "I'm not reacting," I said. "I'm deciding." There's a difference. We didn't move back into the old apartment. We did not buy a house to prove a point. We rented a smaller place together with a lease that listed 2 names and an understanding that if one name was used as a crowbar by extended family, the keys would go back in the bowl. If there's a moral, it isn't romantic. It's practical. Love is not a subsidy. Respect is not optional. Family is not a credit line. My no is not a tantrum. It's a boundary. This wasn't revenge. This was closure. I closed tabs that had been open since the first time someone told me a real man never says no. My name is Marcus. I still keep the calendar and track the bills. I still make lists when my head buzzes. I am still, by most measures, steady. The difference is I no longer loan out my steadiness to rooms that call it weakness. If you raise a glass to insult me, I won't shatter it. I'll set mine down and go home. And if you ask me where home is now, I'll say, wherever the math and the respect both add up.